Fossil Cup is here for 2 weeks, whether you like it or not. Now this meta is very condensed as it's only consisting of 3 typings, that being water, rock, and steel. Now right off the bat, water looks really good there. It resists steel, super effective damage versus rock, but there are a couple grass types and some steel types such as Registeel that really stand out even against those water types. Now I think these condensed metas are actually better for climbing, specifically in GBL, because it helps lay out and predict what your win cons are going to be earlier in the game. Now, as of course in all Pokemon battles, you can't win every single one, but you don't have to. Obviously, the more you win, the faster you climb, but we only need 50% technically as a win rate in order to be climbing in the GBL. Now in this meta, I found there's about 4 archetypes to look for in order to build your team with to climb in this meta. So let's take a look at the rankings here. So right off the bat, number 1 is Poliwrath, number 2, Registeel, number 3, Poliwrath again, and then we have 2 Ferrothorns. So in the top 5, there's only 3 Pokemon, Poliwrath, Registeel, and Ferrothorn, and then the next one down, Kartana, is a Razor Leafer, and you're just not going to see a lot of it. But noticing that in this meta, there's only 6 Pokemon that are above 90 points, and there's a 5-point difference within that. Whereas in Open Great League, you get all the way down to at 90 is Vigoroth at number 31. So not only is this meta condensed in terms of the number of Pokemon you can use, right? Open Great League, you can use anything. Also, just the spread of what becomes quote unquote like viable is a lot smaller. So looking at Poliwrath being our main one, and Poliwrath, this is the first key Pokemon in the meta. Not only is it ranked number 1, but it also ends up kind of defining what's going to happen for the rest of the meta graphic here. So Poliwrath running Counter, Dynamic Punch, Icy Wind, you're going to beat the Registeel, right? As long as you have a shield for that Zap Cannon, you're going to beat the Registeel, and you're going to beat the other mud boys like Swampert, the other counter user being a Scavalier. You also, if you see Lucario, you beat that too. And you even beat Ferrothorn, being our primary grass type, as a water type. I skipped over Araquanid just because I don't think you're going to see a lot of Araquanid, but on the small chance you do, you beat it, apparently, with Poliwrath somehow. So that's good. Now obviously you lose to electric and flying and ghost types, that being the Lantern, Mantine, Jellicent, Pelipper. And while you beat Araquanid, you do lose to Golisopod. The next Pokemon on the list is Registeel. Registeel beats, and look at the list of things that it beats. It's the main Pokemon that all beat Poliwrath. You have Jellicent, Pelipper, Araquanid, Lantern. You would also beat Mantine. And you beat Ferrothorn, which Ferrothorn loses to both Poliwrath and Registeel, so it doesn't look great for Ferrothorn. Doesn't look great for Ferrothorn, but we'll get into that. Now, the key losses here are Quagsire, Swampert, and the counter users. Poliwrath will be able to handle that. You see, it does beat Swampert. It does generally beat the other mud boys as well. Swampert just being a little bit easier of a matchup because Swampert has to land the Earthquake, whereas the other mud boys have like Mud Bomb to throw, right? But counter generally beats out mud boys, especially with that Icy Wind to back it up, and Dynamic Punch in case you end up being able to land that really strong neutral fighting type damage. So Ferrothorn being the next 2 spots here, both number 4 and number 5. So Ferrothorn here, of course, beats the water types, Lantern, Mantine, Swampert, Jellicent, Pelipper, all of that, but you lose to Poliwrath and actually barely lose to Araquanid, and then of course losing to the counter users. You would also beat, if any rock types showed up, you would beat those too. Primarily, I think the only rock type you're gonna see is Cradily, whether it's Shadow or Normal. But Cradily does the same thing that Ferrothorn does, right? It beats the water types, that's its purpose, but it loses to the same things and it loses to Ferrothorn. So if you have to choose between Cradily or Ferrothorn, you're just going to go Ferrothorn. We can take a quick look at Kartana, but I don't think there's much to say because it is a Razor Leafer, so you just beat things that Razor Leafers beat and you lose things that you think it would lose, right? But you don't particularly, I don't think, want to be running Kartana, right? So everything below here is kind of just like extra. They're just extra Pokemon, right? Escavalier, Lucario, the other mud boys who already have their spot, and then the like extra water types, right? So we really have a very condensed meta here. So we have our main 4 archetypes here. We have Poliwrath, Registeel, Grass type, Mud Boy. Those are our main types, and then I guess a 5th slot would be like extra water types, whether that's, I would say don't use Ludicolo because again, Razor Leaf, but Lantern, Jellicent, Pelipper. So pretty standard, just choosing your core and going from there. So with condensed metas like these, it just becomes that much easier to find your win conditions. They're a lot more obvious and straightforward, as well as if you're gonna lose the match, that happens too. It's pretty easy to tell if you're gonna lose a match, and that's okay. You don't need to win every single battle. You're not going to, nobody is. That's just not how Pokemon works, especially Pokemon Go. So hopefully this guide helps you out a little bit. Let me know in the comments what teams and what Pokemon you are using to climb in the Fossil Cup, or if you're gonna play Master League.